Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dahle, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to up-level your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Welcome back to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I'm Carrie Dahle, your host, and today I have this incredible woman with us. Her name is Tawyna Fornerod. She went from being a single salon employee to a multi-location business owner and product innovator. Tawyna has spent over 2 decades mastering both the art of business growth and the beauty industry. And now she's based in her dream home in Southern Oregon, surrounded by nature's inspiration. And she continues to grow her business empire while helping other women entrepreneurs navigate their own path to success. Her journey from beauty professional to multi-business owner has equipped her with real-world insights and strategies, and she now shares with other ambitious business owners. Welcome, Tawyna.
Thank you. So great to be here. I'm excited to connect with you and share my story.
I love that because I think we talked about this before, but I love a story and I love how stories connect people. So can you share at least a little bit of how you went from just working at a salon to where you are now?
Yeah, I always say it's been over 20 years because half the time I can't remember the exact date or the exact year. That's how long it's been. So I usually say about 20 years. My younger son is 23 now, and it was probably about 22 years ago if I can go back. And I moved from North Carolina with my young family to Colorado. And I got my aesthetic license there, and I ended up just getting a great job at a great place in a small community called Cherry Creek. And it started out as a part-time position, and quickly I became their lead esthetician and probably made more money in their studio than they've experienced with any other esthetician. And that was really fun just right from the start to have that success so quickly. And I think that was the job where I realized I wasn't meant to work for other people and I was meant to own businesses and work for myself. And so I left there and started a little studio with my mom, and my dad did the build out for us. And that was in, I want to say 2004 or 2005. It was called Our Villa Skincare and Spa. And that was named after my grandmother. And my mom and I did that for about a year, year and a half. And we had a little trouble with our communication. So I'll say that I learned a lot about what not to do in business in that very first experience. And from there, I went to work out of my home and raise my kids. And I did that till about 2007. And in 2007, I actually, no, I'm sorry. In 2007, I went and started doing my own thing in my home in Stapleton, which is a small community in Denver. And from 2007 to the end of 2013, I kind of just did my own thing, and I was making great money, working about 30 hours a week, running my business, raising my boys as a single mom. And in 2013 is when we opened up our first storefront. And that's when Roland and we got together in 2010, and we kind of have been building this little empire together from then. And it's basically grown from a 2-room, 400 square foot studio to we've had 3 studios at one point. We currently have 2 studios, and we've taken that business, it's called Wax and Lash, to averaging about 1.5 to 1.8 million in gross sales a year. We have anywhere between we used to have close to 30 employees. We've scaled it down. We're in the sweet spot right now, and we're around 11 employees. And we're actually, as you know, kind of keeping our eyes peeled for spaces here in Southern Oregon to see if we might want to maybe have a location here and see if we can give a run for it. So that was kind of how it all started in the beauty industry. And from there, about 5 years ago in 2020, I started the e-commerce business. It's called Just the Strip, and we make beauty products for beauty pros, really in the waxing world, because we wanted to create something for our business. And it just has blossomed into something really beautiful. And that's on my property here in Southern Oregon. And my son and his wife are currently working with us, which has been really great to have a family-run business. And then when we got this property, we've been here almost 3 years. We started out with an employee retreat with our employees from Denver. And then we started thinking maybe we should start inviting other people out here. This property is just a dream property, as you know, you've been out here.
Oh, yes, it's
And
magical.
it is. And so we just feel like God planted us here for a reason. And so now I think we're 8 or 9 retreats in, and we have plans to do more and also do retreats beyond the beauty industry. And yeah, and I too am getting ready to start my first podcast in May. It's called The Blossoming Entrepreneur because I just want to share my story and my experiences with other people so that they realize they can do this too and create this life because financial freedom and freedom of time is what drives me because I don't want to be working nonstop. I want to actually enjoy what I've built. So that's kind of my story.
I love every bit of that, and I have so many things to talk to you about just from listening to that. Even though I've heard good parts of that before. Um, I think the first thing I want to touch on is how did you stand out? Because clearly in your very beginning, you stood out to people, right? There was something special about you that people were drawn to, which is why you had such a thriving business.
That's a really great question. I think when I went to this interview it's called Glow. It was in Denver. And I remember, for me, 20 years ago, getting a job is very different than it is today. And I really want to go back when I hire my people in my businesses. I want to go back to what it felt like when I was a young woman looking for a job, right? And for me, and maybe I don't know if you've ever had this feeling, but that job that you want so bad that you're willing to do whatever it takes. And you almost feel like you're the luckiest girl in the world if you got a specific job. Well, that is how I went into this particular place. And I went in the very first time and I asked for the manager's name. I dropped off my resume and I went to my interview. They called me and they were like, come in for an interview. I brought flowers, a bouquet of flowers in to my interview for my manager. And some people might say, are you just brown nosing or trying to kiss ass, whatever. I want people to feel special. I want everybody that I come across to have an experience with me where they're like, I'm better because of spending time with Tawyna, whether it's I'm better in my business or I'm better in my personal life. And I look back at all of my jobs, even in high school, and I excelled at every one of them and was naturally put into a leadership position. And I think it comes back to, how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? Are you going to show up whether you're working at McDonald's or maybe you're working at a job that you don't totally love? Remember that when we accept a job, we agree to the terms of that job when we get hired. And are you the kind of person that's going to go in and work hard and shine your light? Because when you shine your light, that's going to lead you to the next place in your life. And that's what I did everywhere I went. And then when I owned my own businesses, I want people to have an experience. So the way I stood out is the way that I took care of people from the moment they walked in the door. And at Wax and Lash, for me, there's 5 things in business, especially when it comes to either a storefront or, I mean, you're in a little bit different situation. Being a realtor, you might not be able to do all 5 of these things. And I'm hoping I'm remembering all of them. But it's scent, right? Like, so does it smell good when people walk in? So like, even when they get in your car and you're driving them, is it clean, right? Is it clean? Does it smell good? Is the sound nice, right? When you go into a spa, is the music good? Is it uplifting if you're in a waxing studio, or is it soothing when you're in a spa? Or when you get into somebody's car, are they listening to like hard rock, or are you listening to something that you can talk over? And then visually, is it beautiful, right? Everybody wants to go into something that feels beautiful. And for me, in my studios, we create, it feels like a really comfortable living room, kind of like our home. Like we want people to feel when they walk in the door, welcome and cozy. And I'm going to forget. So feel how it feels, the design, smell, the sound. I'm going to forget. I'm going to have to come back to this one. But there's all the senses for me that are really important because even at our retreats, when people come to our retreats, I ask everybody before they get here, what's your favorite drink in the morning? Because I'm not going to be the person that's just going to have coffee and creamer. Do you want almond milk? Do you like Earl Grey tea with milk in it? Do you like maple syrup? Do you like honey? So I think when we create businesses where we're curating the experience from start to finish for the person and not just for us, people buy into that and they're like, I want to go back to that place or I want to buy from that person. Same with our e-commerce business. When they open up the box, we have our little feather that's our brand, and we put Smarties candies in there, and we want people to feel like it's a gift every time they open a box that they paid for.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
think set me apart from other people.
I can only imagine every bit of that just because I have been in your home and I have seen you around people, and you do, even just interacting with you is this beautiful thing. Like you were so kind, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just beautiful. You touched, I don't want to say a nerve because it's not a nerve, but you touched something to me when you talked about your grandma, naming it after her, and then also just the family situation, doing the first one with your mom and then now continuing on with Roland and your son. How what have you learned? What wouldn't you do again? What would you continue to do? What's your favorite part? Like all the things.
It's such a great question because honestly, I'm kind of going through something personally right now with my e-commerce business with my son and his wife, and recognizing one of the hardest things about owning a business is that when you have family involved, the conversations are always going to feel and be different, right? Because I don't care who you are. When I run a business with people that are not my family, I'm very direct. With the family aspect, there's still this like extra soft, nurturing part of me. Not that I'm not nurturing with employees, but family business, there's more gray than it is black and white. And it's not bad, but having those boundaries for me is something that can be a little bit difficult. And because I never want to disappoint people, right?
Hmm.
But disappointing an employee when you make a financial decision, it doesn't feel the same as when you might be disappointing somebody that's in your family.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
and again, like nothing's bad, but like my son and my daughter-in-law, I love having them here. I want to have them here so bad. But sometimes with family, right? Like maybe for them moving on to another job where maybe they make more money, because realistically in this particular company, I have to make sound financial decisions for my company. And maybe I'm not able to pay them what they might be worth, which is like kind of like in a way pushing them out of the nest. And so, but then there's that part of me, it's like, but I don't want them to leave. So do I pay more to keep them here? But that's not a
Hmm.
sound business decision. So that's the hardest part for me and when it comes to business with family. And
Yeah.
going into business with my parents, there was already kind of some uncomfortableness and some things like some patterns that were, we all have some things that happen with our families. And I didn't feel like I could share candidly. And so that led, I think they felt similarly, and it just led to kind of an uncomfortable exit. And that is
Hmm.
something I never want to experience again. And so I'm very particular about who I have working for me. And that really
Yeah.
comes back to my values, my core values in my life and in my businesses, which honestly, they all pretty much are the same. Everyone goes, do you have new core values for the new business? I'm like, I don't know. They're pretty much the same. They're like life core values for me. And those are, truth, grace, purpose, and connection. And when I'm living my life in the purpose of growing my businesses and creating financial freedom and time, like I have to make sound, sometimes tough decisions. And especially when you have to look back at yourself and go, okay, I'm in this predicament maybe because I didn't do what I should have done in the front end of something, maybe hiring the wrong person because I thought, I just want to give them a chance or maybe they'll change. No, you've got to create the boundaries inside of your business. And that comes with family and just regular employees and follow them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Has Roland been a good help and balance for you in that?
Really great, like from the very beginning. So we've been together for 15 years. We got together in 2010, and I was solo. And when we started our business, Wax and Lash, in 2013, we kind of had some hiccups like early on in our relationship. It was a lot of like, I'm a successful businesswoman. Like, what are you bringing to the table? And he's like, well, I'm a really good guy. And I've got these other things that you're looking for. And so there was a little struggle for me in the very beginning because these are such good questions. We're going really deep here. So, early on, I think and I was actually having this conversation with a friend who was here the other night who's witnessed Roland and our relationship over the years. And I think that there's a lot of young women and young men who think that relationships should be a certain way, and maybe men should be the financial providers and women should be, something different. And because I was financially providing for myself and for other men in the past, I was kind of soured to, I don't know if I want somebody that isn't financially stable. And Roland was like, listen, I know what I bring to the table. I might not make as much money as you, but if that's important to you, I might not be the right guy for you. And it took me a little while to go, he's so great. Am I willing to say, you don't need to bring all the money to the table because he brings so much more? And that leads me to this answering your question of he's been my guide, like my North Star, where, when I would have tough moments in my business or I'd kind of freak out, I would go to him and he would be almost in a way like my therapist or my business coach. So he's really helped me along the way kind of keep that calmness. And as I've gotten older and run my businesses longer, it's pretty much second nature for me, but he still provides that for me. And I'm such a focused go-getter in business. I'm the dreamer, I'm the entrepreneur, I can create anything. And he's my support, right? Like, I don't think I would have the ability to do everything I'm doing without his support. So
Mhm.
he runs everything around the property. He handles everything. Like, we're remodeling this new house we bought. I'll be in the middle of a day and I'm like, I'm starving. Will you make me some food? And he's like, yes, I'll get you some food. So he's just there for everything. And honestly, I think that's why I'm so successful in my business, is because we have such a beautiful relationship. And I wish more people would allow that to happen and allow some men who are just natural nurturers to just be a nurturer in the relationship, instead of this, what society tells us is that they've got to make the money and they've got to do this. It's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, we all have different relationships, and the sooner we all realize that it can be anything and we don't have to live in this box and we don't have to live in this world that people say is how it's supposed to be, it's beautiful. I mean, Jeff and I, we even went through the same similar kind of thing because he did supply, for us, and he did support us while the kids were growing, and then roles reversed and he just needed time, right? He wanted to like explore his loves and dreams and things, but then he felt so much shame, right, over
Yeah.
doing that. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Let me have it for a while. And
Yeah.
now it's this beautiful thing because I watch how we both do this, nice supporting of each other. So
Yeah,
I
and,
love.
and real marriage, right? It is an ebb and a flow, and it's what each person brings to the table, and it's not a tit for tat. And I think so many people, myself included, back in the day, I thought, well, you've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and it's not the case. And now it creates a really beautiful, beautiful, cohesive thing for us. And he handles a lot with the business, so he handles payroll with my actually both companies right now, and then he handles all the customer issues and concerns. So a lot of the things that would, like office work, that would bog me down, he handles a lot of that. But then at the same time, there's certain things, nobody loves doing taxes. Nobody loves like having to do all the financial stuff. But I recognize with Roland, it's not what he's good at. And so for me to force, this, square block into a round hole or whatever into the peg, but he's never going to be the guy that's going to take that over. So why not just hire somebody that I know can handle it, right? And so we've really learned about, I don't want to fight you to make you do something you don't love, and I don't want to do the things that I don't love. So I get, if I need to take a nap in the middle of the day, which I do, and he doesn't come in and go, "What are you doing? Get up, get out of bed." He knows what I need and who I am, and he's supportive of that, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you also talked about carrying things out, right? Because I think a lot of us that are entrepreneurs, we are so do it ourselfers, right? We are so driven and we can just, I can do it all myself. I can do it better than anyone else. I can do it. And we don't
Yeah.
like to let it go. But
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it, right? You can't expand without help.
You cannot. And I tell a lot of the people that I coach, if you really want to grow your business, especially in the beauty industry, that's what, I help people in all kinds of industries, but the beauty industry is obviously one of my biggest. And so many young women are like, I'm just busy all the time. I'm taking clients 40 hours a week, and then I'm doing admin stuff. And then we dive into their numbers, and it's like, they're not really making a ton of money and they're working so much. And I go, you have to think about this. Do you want to go and be an employee and potentially make 80 to $100,000 a year? Or do you want to own your own business and make 70,000 or 60 or even less a year? and be working all the time. And they think, well, they like the idea of what it looks like. And I'm like, get rid of what it looks like for everybody else. If you want to truly own your own business and you want to grow the business to be able to run without you, you have to be able to delegate. And the sign of a good leader is somebody who can delegate and not micromanage and oversee and lead people to do a good job when you're not working, or you're not watching everything that they're doing. And that's why we're able to have two studios in Denver with multiple employees, and we live in Southern Oregon. We only go back maybe twice a year, and we're not micromanaging them. They're professional women, they handle things. And for me, that's where my financial situation changed, because they might, they can wax better than me a lot of times because it's been a long time for me. But when you get out of your own way and you remember that somebody who's even doing 80% of the work that you're doing at 100%, you're winning, right? Nobody's ever going to be as passionate about your business the way you are,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So when you get past that and you want to start lifting other people up, that's the other thing where you are thriving in life, is like watching my employees buy homes and buy cars and have families and, stay with me for coming up on 8 years. Like, it's almost unheard of to see estheticians stay with a business more than 3 years. And most people will go out on their own, but that just shows like you can be successful if you have employees and you can multiply your income and they're successful, you're successful. And to me, that's freedom.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go like a little woo woo, and I know you'll go there with me on this, because I believe, and I think you believe too, that we all can manifest whatever it is we want in our lives. And I watch you, and I've heard your stories, and you've done just that.
Yeah.
I mean, am I right? You do believe
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Oh, I
Okay.
absolutely do. I believe good and bad.
Oh,
You
absolutely,
know?
100%. I mean, my constant conversation around this is always, we either manifest intentionally what we're wanting, or we're manifesting the things, not thinking about it, or thinking about it but not recognizing what we're doing right in the negative.
Yeah, I do believe that.
But for you, what I don't want, it's not a superpower. That's not where I want to go. What about you? What about your life led you to believing you could do that and then watch yourself do this?
That's such a good question, because it's not necessarily the way that I was raised.
Hmm.
I think the confidence probably came for me at a pretty young age. I left home at 17. I didn't go to college. I knew that I tried community college. I felt really locked in. I'm not a fan of people telling me what to do. Like, even in my marriage, like Roland knows, he's like, oh my gosh, I gotta like work around keeping her idea. I am not a fan of somebody going, you should do it this way. I'm like, really? Okay. I'm open to feedback, but growing up, having an issue with authority and watching how much I was automatically put into leadership positions. I've always had that hard like work ethic. And I think that, back in Colorado, Roland and I did some personal development, and that was a pretty big game changer for us. It was before we got married, and that was kind of where my eyes were opened to, am I going to be the victim of my life, or am I going to be the one that's going to, believe that everything that happens to me is directly because of what I've created for myself, right? And, I'll give you an example. We're trying to buy this house with you guys like next door and going to the bank and stuff. And when you buy a home, they pull your credit and everything looks good. And then right before you close, they pull the credit again. And I work really hard to make sure my bills are paid. Everything's on auto bill pay and everything. Well, when we were in Denver, Roland accidentally dropped a business check, and it was lost. And somebody wrote a check on our business account, which then led to all of these credit cards that were being paid. We missed a month not realizing that they weren't paid. And when we went to apply for the house again, we had two 30-day lates on our credit cards. And I'm like, I don't have that in my life. Like, I'm very organized. And I was so upset. And I was like, this is so frustrating. How is this happening? And it all worked out in the long run. But I was so mad. And then I had to like pull it back a little bit. And I'm like, okay, The reality is, I didn't have my stuff organized enough to know that when a card was stolen or something like that happened, I should be able to go right to a spreadsheet and be like, what accounts are attached to that? And it was a lesson of me not being organized. And so that was really nobody's fault but mine,
Mm.
right? It was just a circumstance that happened, and I could sit there and let that like bother me and bother me. But it's things like that where I just feel like constantly doing self work and looking into myself a little bit deeper and into my marriage and how my relationships are, and working with other coaches and other therapists. Like, I'm constantly striving to be better.
Mhm.
And with the manifestation of businesses, I don't really know where it comes from or why, but I have another friend who has been doing some work with Joe Dispenza, and she asked me a
Mhm.
question the other day because she's starting to do more work with him so that she can start teaching and be certified in his teachings. And she sent me a message and she goes, as an entrepreneur, when you make a business decision, let's say I want to open up a new place, in Jacksonville, are you making the decision because of business decisions? Like, are you looking at numbers and looking at all these things, or are you making it from your gut? And I'm like, oh, 89, 95% is my gut. It's just a
Mhm.
gut feeling that I have. And I mean, I'm smart when it comes to business, but like, I'm not afraid to take a risk. I'm not afraid to fail, because the other side, the reward of taking the risk, is so big. I don't have a name for myself out here. So I would be starting from scratch, but I truly believe that every person that came in the doors would come back again. And I have
Yeah.
that faith in myself, and I have that faith in my businesses. And when I think of a new business, whatever it is, the creative side of it is the part that I love the most. And I don't even think about the juicy bits in between. I already can see it at the end.
Mhm.
I already imagine it a year down the road or 5 years down the road, and the feeling that people are going to have when they come in. And that's what guides me to just keep going. And
It's just natural to you.
it
Yeah.
is. Roland's like, I've never met anybody, but what's crazy is the intuition doesn't stop with there. It's with everything. And now Roland, he didn't used to believe in this stuff. And recently he's like, I cannot believe this. He's like, it's everywhere, to the point where, I mean, we were at the house next door, and I told them, I go, we need to get the keys and stuff, from the old owner. And I'm not kidding you. 20 seconds later, she pulls up the driveway, gets out of the truck. She's like, hey guys, I wasn't sure if you were here, but here's your keys. Roland's like, what is going on? So it's like, you speak it. And I mean, this house next
Mhm.
door, whoever has an opportunity, we just said one day, wouldn't it be amazing to just like have a compound? Like, these retreats are like popping up. Wouldn't it be incredible? And then this opportunity of a lifetime presents itself, and hiccup over hiccup. And the whole time, Roland and I were like, if it's meant to be, it'll be. Like, there was no stress around it.
Mhm.
I really believe that when you're destined to do God's work and you're destined to do great things, things will fall in front of you very easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. But I also think that you just having this vision and being able to see it and imagine it and not needing to worry about the house, right? That is
Yeah.
the biggest thing. So many people get caught up in, oh, but how, but what do I do? What do I do? How's that going to happen? Stop it.
Yeah.
Where are you going? You're going to
Yeah.
get there.
You will. And something else for me, like this opportunity with this home and even with a new business, the world is slightly different right now than it was pre-COVID, right? So even in business, things are a little slower for us across the board. So it's like, do we keep taking these risks? Do we keep going and opening businesses? Like, let's say finances are a little tighter than they normally are. I'm also not afraid of the money side of things either, right? Like, financial freedom isn't always about, having all the money in the bank and no debt. People have this mindset of like, you shouldn't have debt. When you're in business, it's okay to have debt. If you're going to have debt to make more money and create more in your business, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to lose everything. I'm afraid to lose my partner. I'm afraid to lose my family, like things like that. So that's why, and I don't even think afraid is the right word. I'm living my life to the fullest, to the point where I'm going to take opportunities and I'm going to jump.
Mhm.
But I also want a really nice work-life balance. And so there are seasons where we work really hard, and then there's seasons when we rest. And I find joy in all of that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Tell me more about retreats.
Yeah, so I've always dreamed when I lived in Denver, we would go out a lot to different restaurants and we would always see a lot of our restaurant friends taking their, team members on a retreat or out on big adventures. And one restaurant in particular, they would take their entire team over to Europe, to Italy. And I was like, that is so cool. I mean, imagine working for a place or imagine even being an owner and being able to do that. And it was May of 2 years ago, May of 23, we invited our employees out for our very first employee retreat. So we flew everybody out, we closed the studios down, and that was kind of the catalyst for it. We had no idea. We were like, let's go for it. They stayed in the house. I think they stayed in the fifth wheel. We might have had like one vintage trailer or something. And after that retreat, Roland and I, we love to serve, we love to care for people, and Roland does all the food and everything. And it was just so smooth and easy. And we realized it just feeds us to
Hmm.
create experiences for people. We did it
Hmm.
for our wedding as well, and we loved it. We didn't have a wedding planner, and we were like, this was the best. And so then we just thought, maybe we should try it. So in August of 23, I invited 6 women in the beauty industry on my dime. I brought them all out because I wanted to just kind of do a trial run. I wanted to hear what they thought about it. And so from that trial run, which was really fun, I've gathered some really good friends in the industry, and I was able to see like what worked and what didn't work. And since then, like I said, I think we're coming up on 9 retreats. And they were always really small, like anywhere between 4 to 6 people.
Hmm.
And people stay at our home and they're immersed with me. So, if you're sitting out in the morning having coffee in the hot tub and naturally a business conversation happens, it could be, I've got an employee, she's dealing, she's doing this and this and this. I'm like, well, let's talk about it. And so you get this one-on-one time that you would never get just on Instagram or in passing or if you hire a coach. So it's very immersive. And this last September, we did a really big retreat. It was our first big one, and we had 25 people. We had them stay
Wow.
in another house in Jacksonville. And then I had five speakers and myself, I think, might have been 6 speakers. And it was all friends in the community. They all came and spoke. And that retreat sold out in like 48 hours. And I was like, man, this is really big. And it was really exciting. And, my son and his wife helped with the food. Roland did the food. And, we don't have a lot of experience in taking care of 30 people. I mean,
That's a project.
it's a project. And so it's like, breakfast and lunch and dinner and having things go on time. And you've got some vegans and vegetarians. And I was like, here we are doing another thing we never thought we would do that just kind of happened with our love for caring for people and creating an experience. And it's just gotten better and better and better from there. So every retreat, we do different things for different people depending on where they're at in their business, but we might go horseback riding, we'll do, like a sound bowl therapy and then maybe like a yoga class. But on our property, they have access to, the house. They can get whatever food and snacks they want. They can go for walks. There's the gym. We're building our sauna and we've got our cold plunge. And then we're investing in putting in a big swim pond because we just want people to feel like they're at an oasis. And, we had a conversation with some friends the other night about the way the world is going. And I don't know if you feel this way, but there's always so much of like, I want to go to a fancy hotel. I want to go to a fancy resort. Everything's like 5-star high end. And our home is beautiful and comfortable. And the little vintage trailers are so cute. But I went through this weird phase where I'm like, are people really gonna like want to come here? It's not like this 5-star experience. And what I realized is I think that's what more people are craving and actually
Hmm.
wanting right now. They're wanting more authentic, simple, like being in a cute vintage trailer and opening your windows and listening to the birds sing and like all the stars that, there's people that come here that they've never seen stars like this, right?
Hmm.
They've never seen deer walking across or turkeys walking across. They've never even been on a hike before in their lives. And so you come to Southern Oregon and they're like, you just slow down.
Yeah.
And they realize at the retreats, we do, the small retreats. We also have a friend of ours, her name's Fran. She does a lot of like really cool therapy, and it's called constellation therapy, where we really dive into you and how you're showing up in your life and why, you are behaving the way that you're behaving in your personal life and your business. And she gets down to the nitty gritty, and these girls leave not even really thinking about their business because they came and they're like, who am I and what do I really want in my life? And so if you can get to the bottom of that, then
Yeah.
you can start building the life that you really, really want, whether it's that business or a new business. And I think so many people, myself included, it can sometimes be really scary to say, to answer that question of, well, what do you want?
Yeah,
Because it's a big question and not a lot of people know the answer to it for themselves.
for sure. And not even sometimes I think people get so caught up in the fact that if you say something, well, what if you want something else later?
So what?
Exactly. But it's funny how when somebody says to you, what do you want? It's like it's just stops you, right? It
Does
or can it paralyzes some people for sure.
it, because so many people, and this I think for me has come with age. I turned 50 this year, and I'm telling you, it's been like the last few years of my 40s and going into my 50s. I'm not afraid if somebody's disappointed with me, that's on them. It's not me. And I think that, when we're making a decision about what we want in our life, we sit there and go, well, what do my parents want? What does my family want? What does this other person want? Or I want to date somebody, but I got to behave this certain way in order to get them to like me. And then you get into a relationship, and then you're not even living the relationship that you really want because you weren't honest with yourself. And so that's a question I love asking people, what do you want?
Mm,
It takes them a while. And even when I ask myself that question, I'm like, what do I want? And it can change, like you said, last year at the end of the year with winter, it was the first time in my entire life that I've actually slowed way down. And I don't know if I shared with you, but I've had a lot of really intense health issues over the years.
mhm,
I found out that I've got like multiple blood clotting disorders, and that is what caused me to have like mold in my body and Lyme disease. And so, because of my blood clotting, it's like it doesn't detox these things that a normal person would get and would just kind of work its way through their body. It held on to me. So I've literally my entire 40s I spent sick, if not part of my late 30s sick.
mhm,
And this is the first time in my whole life that I feel really good and a lot better. And I'm very thankful for that. And that's why it's been really nice to just enjoy this last part of the year and going into spring with this newfound health
mhm,
and not just running myself to the ground. And that's something that I'm realizing I'm want to talk a little bit more about with people, because I think so many of us and a lot of women, I can't really speak on men's how they feel, but we just keep going and going and going, and we don't take time to like move our bodies or work or put the right food into our bodies. And it's like, well, I'm gonna get
mhm.
to work and I'm gonna, get all this done, and I'm gonna eat a bag of Fruit Loops for lunch. And it's like, why don't you not take that two or three clients and get yourself some really good food or make yourself some food because you deserve that? And I think there's a lot of people that just don't feel deserving, and it's the chase for the money.
Mhm.
And um, it's not what's going to make your life good if you don't take
Yeah,
care of the body we've been given.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can't keep going.
you can't. It'll burn you out. And then
Mm,
what you have left. I mean, I see girls that are in their 30s and their 40s like me that are sick, and I'm like, you're not going to last much longer. You're not going to make it to 70, and I want to live till I'm 100, maybe longer if I could. I think I'm 50. I've got another 50 years at least. I don't want to have the mindset of like, well, I'm going to be dead and gone by the time I'm 65 or 70, but
oh dear God.
I see people like that. I mean, I see my mom and I love her to death, and it's hard to watch. Like, she's really not healthy, and she has a hard time moving around. And I'm like, just go for walks, go move your body. And, you got to want it for yourself. And that's, if I could encourage anybody to do anything with themselves, is the discipline to move their body
Mm,
and to take time to just self-reflect a little bit more. And then everything else falls into place.
that's such good advice.
Yeah.
Uh, so when I very first met you, you had told me that you were gonna be working on a podcast, and now here you are. What does that look like for you?
So I have dabbled with podcasts in the past before, and I just felt like my message wasn't really clear. So this one's going to be called The Blossoming Entrepreneur. I love flowers. I love I love just things that are feminine and playful and fun and design wise. So of course, everything I'm going to do, I want the design to be really cool. And so with the Blossoming Entrepreneur, I just thought, what is something that entrepreneurs do, whether it's men and women, and we blossom, right? Like we blossom into something that we don't even know what could be happening in our lives. Like I never imagined I'd be where I am today. And I think about a flower, right? And just all the different petals and all the different directions that we can go in. And if you work hard and you keep focusing on your dreams, whether it's one single dream or multiple dreams, you can create it and it can blossom into something that you never even imagined. I never imagined that I would be hosting retreats and people would be wanting to talk with me about business. Like I just thought I was going to be a waxer for, forever. And then I realized this is different. So I feel like I really want to connect with everybody that I know that's an entrepreneur or who might want to become an entrepreneur. I want to interview people beyond the beauty business, all kinds of people, and
Hmm.
my husband included, because there's so many facets to being an entrepreneur that, you know, if you can learn a little bit from me and not have to recreate the wheel, and you can get somewhere faster because you listen to somebody speak on what it is to hire, how to hire the right employee for your business, like what are you looking for versus just blindly trying to hire whoever can fill a seat. To me that's important. So I've been quiet for a long time with sharing on the business stuff, and I thought this is really a time for me to connect with my friends because let's be real, I live out in the country. I don't really go anywhere. So the only way for me to, I mean, I have friends that I connect with out here, but I know I travel a little bit, but to really be able to connect like nationwide with the people that I love and hear their stories, I just feel like every story is going to help somebody else on some journey, right?
Yeah.
I've got a friend right now, her and her husband, they left Denver and she was working for a big medical practice and for years, and he had a sign company, and their dream was to live on a sailboat and live in the Caribbean and travel, and they're doing it. And I'm like, and he's working from the boat, and she's like, I want to do something. I'm not really sure what. I'd love to interview them because maybe somebody else's dream is to go live on a boat. And like, who knows? And you just get to connect with your friends and talk about business and be playful. And so it's really just a pet project for me, and I'm excited to just play with it and see what happens.
Oh, I think it's going to be outstanding.
Thank
And
you.
mainly because you're just putting your love into it and you're sharing and wanting to help just one person. I mean, that was really why I started this. I kept saying to myself, if I just help one, what does it
Yeah.
matter? If one other person learns something.
I love that. I heard this story one time when we were doing this personal development course, and they were talking about this father and the son were walking on the beach, and all these starfish were washing up on the beach, right? And the son was like walking down the beach and throwing them back into the ocean, and the dad said, "What are you doing? It's not like you're going to save them all." And he's like, "If I can save one starfish and change their
Mhm.
life, then it's worth it." And I was like, "That's so cute." It's kind of like the sea turtles, if you can.
Yeah.
Because so many times we think like, well, if I can't have it all, what's the point? What do you mean if you can't have it all? Like, just do a good job, do your absolute best at everything that you're doing, and everything else will fall into place in a really cool way. And we get caught up. I had my coach this morning, my personal trainer that I work with, and I've heard this before. I'm sure a lot of people have, but she was talking about, we get caught up in social media, or how many people have listened to my podcast, and sometimes we can get down and be like, oh, only 15 people, or only 20 people, or only 100 people, or maybe on a social media post, I'm like, oh, I only got 1,000, views. Imagine being in a room with 1,000 people
Yeah.
listening to your message, right? You're going to have a little bit of a butt pucker. Even with 100 people, you're going to be like, oh, geez, it's a very different feeling. But in the world of social media and stuff, we don't have the faces to the numbers, and so we feel like it's not as big, but it's big.
Hmm. That's a really good way to look at that.
Yeah.
Really good way. Wow.
Mhm.
All right, girl, I could talk to you for hours, but
Love that.
I don't want to waste your time
Oh, I love
or
it. I'm happy to
uh
help.
well, I just think if there's something on your heart that we haven't talked about, I would love for you to share that.
Hmm. I think, for me, just the life that I've been living, I back to again, really, what do you want? Like, when you think about this life that you're gonna leave someday, what is the legacy that you want to leave, right? What do you want people to remember you by? What do you want the feeling to be? Um, I'm working on my trust right now, and it's not about what we're leaving behind. It's just about like for me, it's like my grandkids and the feelings that they have when Roland and I walk into a room and they just come running up and they're just full of love and light. And to me, that's like the biggest legacy you can leave. I don't care if people remember my name or anything like that. It's just the feeling that people have when they've come across me, right? Or come across listening to something. And I think that if I could give any advice, like just really sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, what do you want in your life? What do you want to wake up in the morning and feel like? What do you want to be accomplishing in your days? And take the money. I know we need to earn money, but take that money drive or the social media drive or the likes, like just take it away and dwindle it down to just you. And if you were, if you had 24 hours to live, what would you do? What would you do? Who would you want to spend your time with? And what would you want people to remember you by? And, for me, that's the big, and finding
Good.
like peace, right? Like having that, like the true peace in your heart where you can wake up and lay your head down at night and know, like, I'm living the life that I want to live. Do you live in the
That's so
city and
good.
you don't want to live in the city? Move. Do you live in, like, but finding joy in the journey through it all too is a big one for me, and just the whole process of it all. Yeah.
That's really good. Thank you
Cool.
so much for being here
Oh,
today and for chatting with me.
you're
I
welcome. It was
really
so
enjoyed it.
nice. It's fun to also be on a podcast where it's not all about, just business stuff. It's nice because, like the name of your podcast, people have to thrive in every area, and I
Yeah.
hope that can help people. So I'm
Oh, I think
excited
you
to
absolutely did.
thank you. I'm excited to listen to it, and I appreciate you asking me to be on. I'll have to have you on when I get mine up and going.
I would love that.
I love that. Well,
I hope that you enjoyed the conversation with Tawyna. She is an inspiration, is really the word I can use for her. She inspires me. I think she inspires really anyone, and she does create this beautiful space for people, whether it be just in a meeting with her or in business or her retreats. So I hope that you will reach out to her and listen to our new podcast. And if you're wanting some coaching, or you're just wanting to know more, yeah, reach out. And above all else, remember that I believe in you and you can manifest the life of your dreams.